Hello, we have a bit of problem with the video here. It's going to be many parts, but why not? We do the best we can. And we got into the deconstruction of structuralism. And via Rousseau centers on the privileging of form over force. So that is the power hierarchy. Form over force. Again, this is a question about time, about the static compared to the generic. Very important. Structuralist analysis of a literary object and mutis mutandis, any object of its investigation, by imposing a matrix on a particular text, becomes the object itself, the literary thing itself. In this static reading, in this convocation of form, the object is forced to conform to the reading. Sentence X does not just mean the words of the sentence X. It also gets its meaning from sentences Y, Z, and this can be mapped. So while a book, any book, is only encountered in successive fragments, the task of the structuralist critic is to make the work simultaneously present. All its aspects presented as immediate, punctual, total, whole, like a Husserlian movement. Derrida uses Rousseau's reading of Proust to draw out his point. Proust, notes Derrida, is perfect for the sort of reading Rousseau wants to impose, in this case a circular one. After all, Proust himself had said that he wrote the opening and closing paragraphs of À la recherche, one after the other, and then just fill in the other 1.2 million words in the middle. The book then, according to Rousseau, is a story where in the final pages the hero and narrator unite after a long march during which they sought after the other, sometimes very close to each other, sometimes very far apart. They coincide at the moment of resolution, which is the instant when the hero becomes the narrator, that is the author of his own story. Very important, it's his own story. Against this, Derrida introduces force, which is a form of motion and therefore temporal. Force for Derrida is a product of language power, of signification. The signifier always means more than it wants to. It escapes and exceeds the author's intention. Criticism in privileging form over force, the static over the genetic, freezes meaning. Structure can only ever be a spatial term, and to investigate any object only spatially is once again to exclude time. See, time is not there. Time, technique, There is no time lapse, it's instantaneous. In this demand for the flat and horizontal, writes Derrida, what is intolerable for structuralism is indeed the richness implied by the volume. Every element of signification that cannot be spread out into the simultaneity of a form. So structuralism presents simultaneity as the myth of a total reading or description promoted to the status of a regulatory ideal. So here we are again. We have come back to the starting point. We are playing Monopoly and we just entered prison. It says, go back to go, directly, without passing go. This is exactly what happens here. Knowledge becomes so dominant, so imperialistic that it encompasses itself. It understands itself. It's like a blind autistic eye looking into a mirror and say, I see everything. It's a bit like that. To get into the zest of it, it is also very, very tempting. It's so easy to know anything. And you get on your high horses. It will build your ego. It will make you presumptuous, knowing more than anyone else, being on top of the world. Being something more than
politician.
Yes, politician. I would say the intellectuals of today, using their hands to describe how the social structures structurally goes ahead, and the only reason for that is that he bought a sheet of Claes Olsson, an A4 copy that describes how to do your own matrix, your own grid, how to learn genus differences, class differences. It's all a difference within the grid. There's no real difference. Eric, finally. I'm gonna put it on you. There you go. The word is yours, finally.
What I wanted to say before. You said that everything has the same basic structure and it's only differences. And I was thinking about different examples of that. Like, for example, all religions has a God, they have a salvation of some sort. Doesn't necessarily have to be that you go to heaven, but like in Buddhism you reach Nirvana. And also other parts where you can find the same structure with slight differences is like the car industry. You can drive a Honda, a Rolls Royce, or a Ferrari, or a Koenigsegg, or a Volvo. They all have four wheels, a steering wheel, and the engine, and a seat you're sitting, and you move forward, backward, and you can steer. It's basically the same thing. But there are slight differences that make people prefer different things. What I have experienced is that you often paid a little extra for the experience. Like you bought meat today. You can buy sheep meat at the freezer at the supermarket, or the more luxurious meat at Hötorget. So I just noticed these differences. No, I have noticed them before.
That was a suggestion of Henry here. I wanted to actually go to the cheap supermarket, and he insisted on going to the Hötorget.
It's your birthday today.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's pretty cool that people argue also about these things without realizing that they're basically the same. I have seen that when I live in Gothenburg, people call me traitor for the country because I did not drive a Volvo. But it's a car, it's transportation. Yes, it's fun to drive certain cars and less fun to drive others, but they're basically doing the same thing. So it's also your what taste you have. If you have an expensive wine, it does not necessarily taste better than a cheap wine, but they're the same. an expensive car isn't necessarily better than a cheap one. A cheap one can run forever, like a Toyota, they're never in the workshop. But if you buy like a Lamborghini, you have to repair it all the time. So,
or an Alfa Romeo.
Yeah, you also have to repair it all the time. So, yeah, and I think, for me personally, I think it's very weird that people don't even acknowledge it. You can point out, like, these two are the same, basically, in the ground up, but they appear different. For example, Christianity has heaven, Buddhism has Nirvana, Hinduism has Brahma or Ishvara, and Islam also has heaven. And, yeah, so that's it's a remarkable thought to have.
It's like a super force.
Yeah,
it's like being Superman or Batman. You can do it by an instant. Not even Superman has those powers, but we can get them by studying the Matrix.
Yeah, and one thing too is that the Matrix consists of fractals. That's also one thing. You see the same thing over and over again in different versions, maybe different color, different shape. But that's all that the universe is. It's fractals. It's fractals of God. I would like to suggest. So yeah, that's a remarkable thing that I right now have spun out. I noticed it before, but now I thought deeply while listening to you. You want your microphone back?
Yeah, it was an excellent. All religions are the same. It was never said before structuralism. So we don't know about how much we got influenced by structuralism in our thinking. And therefore it's doubly good of college to choose this book. I didn't realize that, but learning the story actually makes us understand how incredibly ingrained structuralism is in our everyday thinking. No one in this earth ever said that all cultures are equal, or that all religions are equal. Never happened. And now even the Archbishop used to say it, Jacques, using structuralism, not using Christianity, using structuralism, as constructed so conveniently by Lévi-Strauss and Saussure and others. We are victims for it. And the most dangerous thing is to say, go into the Matrix and not understand what it does, and say, oh no, it's not true that all cultures are created equal. Then you are in the Matrix. We need to understand it is a matrix, and its purpose is not equality. It has nothing to do with it at all. It has to do how our understanding gets, I would say, diminished by it. The nice promises that structuralism gives is not uphold, I think.
I was thinking about his last name, Salmon, and I was thinking about the fish. Only Norwegian salmon does. That is quality Norwegian salmon. And then also, I need to be a traitor. You must be a traitor. I want to be a traitor, and I feel that the Norwegian landscape is much beautiful, more beautiful than the Swedish one, and much more beautiful than the Finnish one. But you have to be in Norway and see these landscapes in Norway, these mountains, to see. And it's also amazing to see the fractality says that the Norwegian coastline is much longer than the African one. On a map, the African coastline seems to be much larger. But if you use fractality, you recognize that the Norwegian seashore is much longer. So we have fractality helps us to see that not everything is the same. That some countries in some respects are better than the others. So we should affirm and have the courage to be traitors and affirm here that Norway is better in many aspects than Sweden or Finland. And so that gives us back that the specularity. You can put greed on Scandinavia and say Sweden is the same as Finland or Norway. that the differences between these places. Let me give it back to Hans.
Well, thank God the video is still running. We were a bit of bad luck there. Yeah, it's just great. It's so revealing. It's like understanding why I've been thinking in a certain way. Otherwise, you are an unconscious victim for these tendencies. And as I just said, criticizing them from within only makes them stronger. You need to understand why they are put in place, and I think they form an incredible part of the modern education system after 1920, 1925. Now it's structuralism all over the place. It's an easy tool of pretending to have knowledge. It's a machinery to say, I know this, I know that. No wonder academia today doesn't have any significance at all. It used to have importance, great importance in the 18th century. It doesn't have any importance at all. Nobody listens. Why? Well, because it doesn't have force anymore. It just has form. And form without force is nothing. It's just staticness. Form with force, however, is something to be reckoned with. So we can get tricked to go into the matrix. We should take the blue pill and escape. Or is it the red pill? I always thought the red pill. Take the red pill and escape from the matrix. I'm terribly sorry for the incredibly bad volume here. I don't know if the video is even audible, but it was very interesting. And now we are into the goody parts of the book. So the hard thing was done now. Now we know why we've been reasoning as we have done all our lives. Now we can look at it in some other way. And that could actually lead to some sort of advancement, liberation, I would say. It's very important. Thank you very much, and thank you Kalle, Henrik and Erik for participating today. Bye bye.
Thank you.